Happy Odin's Day. Let's continue with the tale of Ragnar's sons. Chapter 2 of Ragnar's Sons was translated by Ben Waggoner. Now, when the sons of Ragnar were grown, they raided widely in many lands. Their brothers, Eirik and Agnar, travelled to separate places, and Ivar went to a third stead, and his younger brothers with him. And he made plans for them because he was very clever. They took for themselves Zealand and Jutland, Gotland and Oland, and all the islands in the sea. Ivar and his younger brothers set themselves up at a lair on Zealand, although that was against King Ragnar's will. His sons went raiding everywhere because they didn't want to be less famous than King Ragnar, their father. King Ragnar didn't like it that his sons resisted him and took his tribute-paying lands against his will. He set a king called Eistein over Upper Sweden and told him to take care of his kingdom, but to defend against his sons if they laid claim to it. One summer, when King Ragnar had gone with his host to the Baltic, his sons Eirik and Agnar came to Sweden and moored their ships in Lake Mälaren. They sent a message to Uppsala for King Eistein to come to them. And when they met, Eirik said that he wanted King Eistein to rule Sweden under the brothers' lordship, and asked to marry Borghild, his daughter, and said then they could hold the kingdom well instead of King Ragnar. Eistein said he wanted to present this to the local chieftains, and so they parted. When King Eistein brought up this case, all the landed men reached an agreement to defend the land against Ragnar's sons. An overwhelming force was summoned, and King Eistein went out against Ragnar's sons. When they encountered each other, there was a great battle, and the sons of Lodbrok were overpowered, and so many fell on the brothers' side that only a few were left standing. Agnar fell, and Eirik was taken prisoner. King Eistein promised Eirik safe conduct and as much wealth as he might wish from the Uppsala treasury as compensation for his brother Agnar, and along with that his daughter, whom he had previously asked for. Eirik, however, wanted no compensation and no king's daughter, and said that he didn't wish to live after the defeat he had suffered. But he said that he would accept the right to choose his own death day for himself. Because King Eistein could not reach a settlement with Eirik, he agreed to that. Eirik asked that they put the points of their spears under him and lift him up over all the fallen. Then Eirik said, "I won't take brother's blood money, nor buy a maiden with rings. It's now said that Eistein has become Agnar's bane. My mother won't mourn me. I'll mount up high above the slain. Let the greedy spear shaft skewer me right through." Before he was heaved up on the spears, he saw a man riding fast. Then he said, "Fare with my final words. Finished our eastern journeys. The slender lady Aslag now owns my hoard of rings. Fury will be fiercest when they find out my death, if my stepmother speaks of it to her sons so gentle." Now it was done. Eirik was lifted up on the spear points, and thus he died up above the slain. When Aslag heard the news on Zealand, at once she went to meet her sons and tell them the news. Bjorn and Hvitserk were playing a board game there, and Sigurd stood before them. Then Aslag said, Had you been first to fall, without fail you would not be lying, lacking vengeance, half a year later, brothers, if Eirik and Agnar, I'll conceal it little, brethren not born of me, still did breathe and live. Then Sigurd, snake in the eye, answered, It will take us 3 weeks, if you are troubled, mother. Far must be our faring for our forces to be ready. If sword edges aid us, Eistein Belli shall not hold Uppsala's high seat, though hoarded wealth he offer. Then Bjorn Ironside said, A hawk keen breast holding bold heart and mind within, aids a man though he make but little mention of it. Though no snakes nor serpents shimmer in our own eyes, my brothers made me merry, I remember your stepsons. Then Witzig answered, Let's plan before we promise, plot to wreak our vengeance. Be blithe that Agnar's banesmen must bear a host of harms. Let's launch the boat on the billows, break ice before the prow. See how soon we can get our sailing ships outfitted. Then Ivar the Boneless said, You all boast of boundless bravery and daring. Now what you all need is great tenacity as well. I'll be hoisted above heroes because I have no bones, yet I'll have a hand in vengeance, whichever I make use of. After that, Ragnar's sons assembled an overwhelming force. When they were ready, they travelled with a fleet of ships to Sweden. But Queen Aslug travelled overland with 1,500 knights, and that force was very well equipped. She herself wore armour and commanded this army, and was called Randalin. They met up in Sweden and plundered and burned everywhere they went. King Eistein heard about that and summoned every man in his kingdom who could fight to join forces against them. And when they met, there was a great battle. Lodbrok's sons won the victory, but King Eistein fell. That story was told and retold, and has become very famous. King Ragnar heard the news as he was raiding, and he was very displeased with his sons because they had not let their revenge wait for him. And when he came home to his kingdom, he said to Aslak that he would do no fewer famous deeds than his sons had done. I have now won back under my rule almost all the kingdom that my ancestors had, except for England, and for that I have now had 2 transports built in Lydar and Vestfold, because all his kingdom lay between the Dovrefjell and Lindesnes. Aslak answered, You might have had many longships made there for the cost of these transports. Know this as well, it's no good to sail for England in large vessels, on account of the currents and sandbars. This is not being planned wisely. But all the same, King Ragnar travelled west to England in these ships with 500 men, and he wrecked both ships on the coast of England, but he himself and all his forces came safely to land. He now took to harrying wherever he went.